Niravadyanam Nishadyam Gunasampadam Sharanam Papitanam Shatakopamuneeswaram Sri Rangana Sadagopeti Indradrashtam Lakshmi Narasimha Sada Karnaikavatram Sri Rangavira Ragrat Sadagopeti Vedanta Desigeti Indrabham Prabhatye Srimat Rangasadari Samyavara Laptagaman Tatvayam Srimat Vira Rahutvahatya Sadpadara Vindashrayam Srimat Vedavadam Sadesigade Karunya Vikshaspadam Seve Rangadurina Sasanavasam Narayanam Yoginam Vedanta Desigeti Indra Kadakshalabda Trayantasaramanavattim Gudam Buddhagrahim Narayanadyeti Duryagripaabhishektam Sri Ranganadayati Shekaramashrayamaha Srimate Sriman Sadagopa Sri Vedanta Desigeti Indra Mahadesikaya Namaha Srimate Sri Lakshmi Narasimha Divyapadaka Sevaka Sriman Sadagopa Sri Narayanayati Indra Mahadesikaya Namaha Srimate Sriman Sadagopa Sri Ranganadayati Indra Mahadesikaya Namaha. Today we will be covering 12 slokas out of Bhagavad Gita. We have 6 children who will be presenting 2 slokas each from the Bhagavad Gita. Think about Bhagavad Gita as being the essence of the Vedas, which was milked by Gopalanandana or Lord Sri Krishna. So let's start.
Param Brahma Param Dhamma Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. The Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Station, the Supreme Purifier art thou, the Eternal Divine Spirit, the Primal Deity, the Unborn Lord. In this verse, Arjuna expresses his realization of Krishna's true form. He now sees Krishna not only as his friend, but as the ultimate divine being who is the origin and support of all creation. This is an important verse from chapter 10, verse 12 of the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna is acknowledging Krishna's supreme divinity. Let's summarize the verse. Arjuna addresses Lord Krishna, recognizing him as the supreme divine entity, often referred to as Brahman. Arjuna describes Krishna as the eternal spirit, the purest being, and the primal force that is beyond birth and death. So, what are the key concepts? 1. Supreme Brahman. 2. Supreme Purifier. 3. Eternal and unborn. 1. Supreme Brahman. Arjuna calls Krishna Param Brahma, meaning the highest reality, which is beyond the physical world. Number 2. Supreme Purifier. He refers to Krishna as the Supreme Purifier, implying that connecting with Krishna can cleanse the soul of impurities. 3. Eternal and unborn. Krishna is described as eternal, without beginning or end, and free from the cycle of birth and death.
Right.
Making him the unborn Lord. Now, let's reflect. Think about Arjuna's realization represents a turning point in his understanding of divinity. The term Supreme Purifier suggests that devotion to a higher power can elevate one's mind and actions.
I want to elaborate a little bit on this. When we talk about purifier, all of you immediately may recollect a water purifier at home, whether it is in the refrigerator, whether it is on the tap, or any such purifier. What is important for us to realize is water with all the impurities go in, but what comes out is a clean water. Krishna works the same way with our lives. When we chant his name, when we pray and think of him, he removes all the dirt from our minds, like the fear, anger, jealousy, and fills us with kindness, joy, and wisdom. We also know that Archavatara purifies our soul. For example, we know that Ahobalamat has Dole Krishna or Navanita Krishna, which goes around Sanchara. It actually is a very beautiful form which allows us to feel and connect through the Divyamangala Vigraha about Lord Krishna's Leelas and cleanse our heart and pave a way for us to go to Vaikuntha. And in the Vishnu Sahasranama also, Lord is called Paramam Pavitram. So similarly here, think of us having a mirror which has dust, and we use a cloth called bhakti to clean it, and then we can see very clearly all our defects and cleanse it, and it can shine well. So now what we will do is any questions for any of the others on the call? If you have questions, we will take that and then go to the next slide. All right, next slide. Adrit.
कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधिमां त्वां प्रपन्नम्. My very being, afflicted with a taint of weak compassion, I ask thee, my mind bewildered as to the right, which were better, that tell me definitely, I am thy pupil, teach me that I've come to thee. This verse highlights an important moment when Arjuna, after being overwhelmed by his emotions, realizes the need for guidance. He turns to Krishna, acknowledging that he cannot make the right decision alone. This is verse 7, chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. The summary of this verse is Arjuna is overwhelmed by doubt and moral confusion. He feels weak and doesn't know what to do. He realizes he cannot make decisions on his own and needs Krishna's wisdom. Arjuna takes refuge in Krishna, accepting him as his teacher, and asks Krishna to instruct him on what is truly best. The key concepts are 1. Overwhelmed by compassion. 2. Surrender to a higher power. 3. Seeking guidance. 1. Overwhelmed by compassion. Arjuna feels compassion for his family members and teachers on the battlefield, but this compassion weakens his resolve, leading to confusion. Number 2. Surrender to a higher power. Arjuna recognizes he needs help beyond himself. By surrendering to Krishna and accepting him as his teacher, Arjuna is showing humility. 3. Seeking guidance. The line, teach me what is good, reflects Arjuna's willingness to learn and understand his duty. The meaning in context is that this is the beginning of Arjuna's transformation, where he is ready to learn and is open to spiritual knowledge. Now, let's reflect. Consider how Arjuna's willingness to admit his weakness and seek help is a sign of strength rather than weakness.
Thank you, Adrit. Here, what we see is a very good example. Imagine we are lost in a maze, in a big maze. That is what this world is. But luckily, there is somebody who's above, who's watching, who's not like us, lost in the maze. We are seeking the help. And actually, seeking help is a smart choice. Here, the maze is actually Arjuna's own thought. Arjuna is having different thoughts. Oh, this is on the opposite side. I need to fight. But they are my uncles. They are my relatives. They are my teachers. This is what is the confusion in Arjuna's mind before the war began. Now, the main thing that we all need to learn from Arjuna here is make Krishna our GPS. When you are lost while traveling, what do? We use the GPS as the guide. Krishna is the spiritual guide and the GPS for us. When Arjuna was lost in his thoughts and did not know what to do, he turned to Krishna for directions, to get the right path. So that is what we will do. Anybody has any questions, please ask. Otherwise, we will move to the next slide. Right?
यावत् सञ्जायते किञ्चित् सत्त्वं स्थावरजङ्गमं क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगात् तद्विद्धि भरतर्षभ. Whatever you see that is born, that being, whether stationary or moving, is a combination of field of action and field knower. Know that it is an amalgamation, best of the Bharatas. The Supreme Lord said, O Arjuna, this body is known as a Kshetra, the field of activities. And the one who knows this body, the Jivatma, is called a Kshetrajna, the knower of the body. This is found by the sages who found the truth about both. Now let's summarize the chapter. Krishna is explaining that all living things, whether they move like animals or are stationary like plants, are made of two main elements, the body, field, and the soul, the field knower. Everything that is born and visible is an amalgamation of these two aspects. Regardless of whether they are human, animal, plants, or any other beings, they are all animated by this combination. The Jivatma, individual soul, animates all beings, human, gods, devas, animals, and plants. It can also lead us to think about our own bodies as temporary, while the soul remains as the true essence.
All right. I want to help all of us, understand this very sophisticated verse from Lord Krishna. We're all not yet like Arjuna, and probably we can benefit from an example. So I'm going to use this example for the next, 4 or 5 slokas. The example is very simple. Think of a puppet and a puppeteer, or a car and the driver. So think of the body as a car and soul as the driver. Krishna is teaching here that body is like a car, a tool that moves and acts in the world. The soul is the driver controlling and guiding the car. The car cannot move or decide where to go on its own. The driver must steer, accelerate, stop, etc., etc. And for whatever reason, if the car gets old and it doesn't work, we change the car. That is like rebirth. Just like a driver switches to a new car when the old one stops working, the soul leaves the old body and takes the new one when the body can no longer function. Hope that helps all of you get a little bit orientation towards what Lord Krishna is saying in this verse. Any questions anybody has? We'll go through probably few more of these slokas with the car as an example of the body and the Jivatma as the driver. All right? Over to you.
Idam shariram kaunteya kshetram iti abhidhyate yatadyo veti tam prahu kshetrajna iti tadvidah. This body, son of Kunti, is called the field of action. Who knows this? He is called field knower by those who know him. The Supreme Divine Lord said, Best of the Bharatas, whatever moving or not moving, like plants, living organisms you see, is known to be a combination of the field of activities, Kshetra, and the knower of the field, Kshetrajna. So all of these organisms have Jivatmas. Understanding that the body is just a vessel and the Jiva is our true self shifts off our focus from purely material existence to also include deeply spiritual journey. It encourages us to recognize that we are not merely physical beings, bound by the limitation of the body, but eternal souls. This knowledge is liberating and can transform the way we view ourselves and the world. By identifying with the soul rather than the body, we can reduce our attachments to material things, which are often a source of suffering, possessions, social status, or even physical appearance can change or disappear, leading us to anxiety or distress. When we understand that these are temporary aspects and that our true self is beyond all of it, we find a sense lasting inner peace. When we identify with the body, the fear of death becomes overwhelming because it feels like the ending of everything. This fear arises because we forget the souls continually beyond the physical form. If we see ourselves as the eternal souls and start focusing on what truly matters, growth, purpose, and connection with the divine, we start placing more importance of actions that contribute to the spiritual progress rather than those who are merely satisfied with the physical senses.
Right. Thank you, Vaidehi. I want to just ask a question to make the session a little bit exciting. We say the driver is controlling the car, but when we sleep, what is going on? Driver is not controlling the car. So we are not telling, oh, sleep, body, sleep. Anybody wants to answer? Please raise your hands. Okay, Adrit?
The soul the soul becomes inactive and the car goes like to sleep, or it just rests.
No, actually, that's a good try. So think like this. I want to change. That is why I'm asking the question. I want to help you with a slightly different analogy. Okay. Think of cruise control in the car. How many of you heard about the cruise control in the car? What happens is, even though the soul is not controlling the body like when it is awake, the prana is actually moving the things within the body. Actually, it does most of the time. Even though you are driving the car, you are not aware of the engine, how it is working. Same way, within the body, there are a lot of moving parts which are driven by the car's components. And some of those things can be switched into cruise control mode, and that is how it is happening. So just I'm giving the same analogy for you all to understand. Nowadays, self-driving cars are there. We are not talking about it. We are just strictly talking about the analogy here, where the cruise mode is what it is. Any questions? All right. Next.
महाभूतानि हमकारो बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च इन्द्रियाणि दशैकं च पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचराः. Great elements, the ahankara, buddhi, mahat, and avyaktam, prakriti, the 10 senses plus 1, and the objects of 5 senses. Kshetra serves as the adhisthana, substratum, for the jiva to experience the world, pursue desires, and ultimately seek liberation. Now, let's summarize this verse. The Mahabhutani, great elements, refers to the 5 fundamental elements: Prithvi, Jala, Agni, Vayu, and Akasha. These are the primary components of the material world. Ahankara here means Bhutadi, which is the primal element responsible for initiating the formation of material objects. Buddhi is also called Mahat, representing the cosmic intelligence or intellect. Avyakta is known as Prakriti, which is the unmanifest origin of all material elements. There are 11 indriyas, 5 jnanendriyas, sense organs: Shrotra, hearing; Tvak, feeling; Chakshu, seeing; Jihva, tasting; and Grihana, smelling, used to perceive sensory information. Then there are 5 karmendriyas, motor organs: Vak, communicating; Pani, grasping; Pada, moving; Payu, the excretory organ; and Upasta, the reproductive organ, which facilitate action. One more is the manas, mind, which coordinates and processes the information received from the senses. The objects of the senses are Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, and Gandha. These are the perceptual categories associated with each of the five sense organs. Understanding the components of the kshetra, its modifications, and how they interact helps one gain true knowledge of the Atman, self. This knowledge helps distinguish between the kshetra, body, and the kshetrajna, knower of the field, leading to spiritual progress. Okay?
Thank you. Now I want to give one hint and then ask another question with the same car analogy. Let us say the Mahabhutas are the great elements, which are the materials like the metal, the rubber, the plastic, everything which goes into manufacturing of the car and the car components, right? Or here, the Prithvi, Jala, Agni, Vayu, and Akasha. These are the different things that combine together to form the material body of the car. Question is, anybody can give any examples of Indriyas, the five Jnanendriyas and the five Karmendriyas in the context of a car? Let me give one example. Nowadays all the modern cars have cameras, and they have microphones even to pick up things. Those are the kinds of things that pick up the information, or like the Jnanendriyas, which collect the information. Now I'm going to ask, what could be the Karmendriyas, which could be like the parts through which it acts? It could be the wheels, it could be the accelerator, it could be the steering, it could be anything. Just, any example would have been good. Yeah, Achita, go ahead.
I think the example would be probably the engine.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to come to that. There is engine we can call, maybe, I'm not sure which one. You can come up with a plan why engine is like one of those. But I'll tell you, the manas is like the dashboard. You have seen some cars having a nice dashboard. So that is like the mind, which is like coordinating all the information and allowing you to act and direct the car. Make sense? Okay. All right, Adrit.
I just wanted to say that water could be fuel, and the engine could be fire, and also just saying this is it's not really having to do with this, but I think if you're gonna go to a sixth sense, I think like cruise control or like self-driving
Yeah.
could be a sixth sense.
Very nice. All right. Very nice. Navneet.
Like in another perspective, you could consider these as like actual parts. Generally, like for example, VAC could be the radio in the car, is communicating with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then PADA is the wheels, maybe, because it's moving the car.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The excretory organ could be like the oil place, or like the where it gets gas.
Exhaust. Yeah.
Yeah, exhaust. And then the reproductive organ's a bit more, I don't see anything for that.
No, we don't need to worry about everything. There is a limit to our example. Example is given. So think like this. Don't think your body is the car. Your body is the body. We are thinking for analogy, right? We should limit the example to what it is. And remember, you have to take the example in the context. Okay?
Yes.
Very good. That's any questions? Otherwise, we will go to the next one. All right.
Purusha Prakriti Stohi Bhungte Prakriti Jan Gunan Karanam Guna Sangosya Sadasadyoni Janmasu. For the spirit, abiding in material nature, experiences the gunas born of Prakriti. Attachment to the gunas is the cause of his births in good and evil wombs. The Purusha, spirit or self, resides in Prakriti, material nature, and experiences the outcomes generated by interacting with Prakriti. The gunas, qualities of Prakriti, Sattva, goodness, Rajas, passion, and Tamas, ignorance, influence the Purusha. Attachment to these gunas is what causes the jiva, individual soul, to experience rebirth in either good or challenging circumstances. Let's summarize this verse. The Purusha, while residing in the body made of Prakriti, interacts with the three gunas. Sattva represents purity, knowledge, and harmony. It brings peace and wisdom. Rajas represents passion, activity, and desire. It is responsible for all action and movement. And Tamas, which represents ignorance, darkness, and inertia. It brings confusion and lethargy. These gunas are forces of Prakriti and influence our behavior, thoughts, and experiences. The attachment to the Purusha to any of these gunas leads to karmic consequences which bind it to the cycle of birth and death. If the Purusha gets entangled in Sattva, it may lead to rebirth in good or virtuous environments. If dominated by Rajas or Tamas, it leads to being reborn in more challenging or difficult circumstances. Now, let's reflect on how the gunas affect your actions and emotions. When you feel peaceful and in harmony, sattva is dominant. When you are restless or highly driven by desire, rajas takes control. And when you feel lazy or confused, tamas is at play.
Thank you. This is a important one. We have chosen for this session 12 different slokas from the Bhagavad Gita. We are going through an important concept here. How I would like to continue to use the analogy here is think of life is like a journey. Can you control the road? You're the car and the driver. You can't control the road. But what you can choose is the way you can go from one place to another. So the Purusha or the soul is the driver. The Prakriti or the material nature is the road in which the car is going to be driven. The Rajas, Sattva, Rajo, and Tamogunas are actually the conditions of the road. Think like that, right? Sattva means basically a smooth, clean, easy driving road. You experience, peace. It is like living a life of wisdom and kindness. If you are having rajas or a busy, crowded road, driving requires a lot of effort, focus, energy, just like a life driven by a lot of ambition and desires. You need a lot of, concentration. So that is the busy, crowded road. Then you have a tamasic road, which is dark and muddy, and the driving is slow and difficult. It is like, a life of ignorance and confusion, which is not easy. So journey is smooth when the road is clear, that is sattva. It is exciting but tiring if it is a busy road, like a rajas, and you are stuck in the mud on a dark road, that is like tamas. So you have to choose your path. The driver experiences the journey differently depending on the road conditions that you choose. That is what the Lord is explaining here somewhat. Okay, it is an example. We are just continuing to use the example to understand this. Any questions? Right? Thank you, Navneet.
क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयो ज्ञानं यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम. Know also that I am the field knower in all fields, son of Bharata. Knowledge of the field and field knower, this I hold to be true knowledge. Krishna is telling Arjuna that he, Krishna the Lord, is the Kshetrajna, field knower in all Kshetras, fields. This is what Krishna considers real knowledge. While detachment from the material aspects of Prakriti can lead to identification with the Atman, our true refuge lies in the Paramatman, the Supreme Lord, who pervades in all Kshetras, fields. Let's break down this concept further. Krishna, representing the ultimate reality, identifies himself as the Kshetrajna in all Kshetras. This declaration reveals an underlying unity that the Supreme Consciousness, the Lord, is present in every field, aware of all beings. Thus, the distinction between field and field knower is bridged by the Lord, demonstrating that while individual selves perceive separation, there is an essential oneness in divine consciousness. They are not separate from the Supreme, but rather expressions of it. Just as waves are part of the ocean, Kshetra, the material aspect, and Kshetrajna, the conscious aspect, are parts of the Supreme Whole, Paramatman. Understanding this interconnectedness leads to recognizing the material and the spiritual as two facets of one reality. Krishna's declaration of field knower in all fields shows that the divine is accessible and intimately connected with every being. The Lord is not some distant or unreachable entity, but is present within each of us, aware of every action, thought, and experience. Recognizing this can become a source of comfort and refuge, as the divine presence is always within play. Now let's talk about the sanctity of the material world, Kshetra. It is not merely an illusion or something to be discarded, rather, it is a field of divine play and experience. The Kshetra is where the divine unfolds, and every experience, whether joyful or challenging, becomes a part of the spiritual journey. This view helps us honor the material world as sacred as it is infused with divine presence.
Thank you. What is the important thing here is we don't reject the world as some of the philosophies in the world do. They just say, this is all illusion, it doesn't exist. No. For us, it is a very important thing where we agree, enjoy, and see the divine embedded within this material world. So what actually Lord says here is very important. We can't translate it very directly here. So I'm going to try to give this example, continue the example. But think like this. There are old cars, basically rusty cars. There are slow cars. There are fast cars. There are shiny cars. There are all kinds of things. That is like the people's body. They have differing, differ in age, health, or looks, or whatnot. I mean, even there are devas, there are, manushas, the stavaras and the jangamas, everything, right? So there are different things that exist where you don't see that it is the same kind of a car. But what we know is the driver, the essence of all these organisms, even though externally different, they are actually pretty similar. Having said that already, now what Krishna is telling is he is omnipresent and omniscient. When you're omnipresent, and omniscient, every driver may experience something, but Krishna is aware of every little thing. So think of just a comparative story. Let's say in a village, there is an old ox cart and a princess' new shiny golden chariot. Villagers are admiring the chariot and laughed at the cart. But one day what happened is both got stuck in the mud. And the old cart with the ox, they have come through that street many times and they know how to get out of this mud because they have traveled many times. The villagers then learn to respect, okay, each have their own strengths. So we need to be careful not to judge the book by the cover. We need to understand that all the drivers are of the divine spark. And not only that, understand the Lord is present within each one of us and in all organisms. All right? So the moral here for all of us to take, whether someone is young or old or wealthy or not, they deserve the respect because they carry the same divine spark, and Lord is within every one of them. So that is the main thing. All right, let's go to the next one. So far, just 1 minute. So far, we have seen how to differentiate between the soul and the body. Now we are actually trying to understand how can we realize not only the soul, but also the divinity, which is having the abode within us. So that is what Lord Krishna is talking about here. Go ahead.
ध्यानेनात्मानि पश्यन्ति केचित् आत्मानमात्मना अन्ये साङ्ख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन चापरे. By meditation in the self see, some the self, by the self, others by discipline of reason, and others by discipline of action. Some realize the Atman through meditation, dhyana, others through reasoning and discernment, sankhya or jnana, and yet others through selfless action, karma yoga. This verse acknowledges the diversity in human temperament and the different paths available for attaining spiritual knowledge. Each of these paths are valid depending on one's nature and inclinations. There are 3 paths described in this verse: Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Karma Yoga. Let us cover each of us one at a time, starting with Bhakti Yoga, which is devotional meditation. Bhakti Yoga is the path of devotion, direct perception through devotional meditation on the divine. In this path, one realizes the self by focusing wholeheartedly on the divine Lord and forming a deep emotional and spiritual connection. This meditation leads to the realization of the divine presence within oneself and in all beings. Now, let us talk about the second path, Jnana Yoga, which is intellectual understanding and discernment. Jnana Yoga is the path of intellectual understanding. It involves the use of reason and the study of the scriptures to discern the difference between the material body, Kshetra, and the spiritual self, Kshetrajna. People on this path strive to understand their true nature through introspection, self-inquiry, and the pursuit of spiritual knowledge. This approach is suitable for those with an analytical mind. Now let us talk about the third path, Karma Yoga, action without attachment. Karma Yoga is the path of selfless action. It involves performing one's duties without attachment to the results. Through Karma Yoga, one purifies the mind and gradually overcomes the ego, thus realizing the Atman. The actions are performed in the spirit of service and dedication to the divine rather than for personal gain.
Right. This is very, very, very advanced. Ramanuja, in fact, gives a specific sequence how we can, go up the ladder. But the most important thing to know is karma yoga is sufficient for self-realization or understanding your true self and being able to, have the experience of it as a true sakshatkar. The great yogis like Janaka and others who have followed the karma yoga have been successful in this pursuit. But let us keep it rather simple. Let's take another example. Fortunately, we are done with the cars. We are moving on to treasures. So let us say, for example, there are 3 friends and there is a treasure. The dhyana yoga person or the meditator, would sit under the tree quietly, close the eyes, meditate deeply, then based on the collected mind and their intuition, have the vision of the glowing path towards the treasure. It is possible, but that is very advanced and only for advanced, seekers. The next one is, the second friend or the second person. He says, okay, how can I get to the treasure. He studies the maps, he studies the books, he looks at the clues in the forest, then carefully analyzes the details, and using the reason and the information available in the scriptures, it also involves the meditation, but he uses all the information here that he has understood very well by applying the reason and avoid the obstacles and confidently reach the treasure. Right? So that is the second friend. Then the third friend is there. The third friend does not have both these means. He's pursuing the path you can call as a helper. He's telling, okay, it is somewhere in this forest. I'm going to help all the travelers who are lost or injured or confused or whatever it is. Just he does his duty, maybe guide them, share the food he has, even sometimes help and carry some people a little bit or take someone on the back or whatever. Each time they help someone with God's grace, without their knowledge, actually, they are moving closer to the treasure. And in the end, because that is the, due to the selfless nature and not being attached to the, goal by itself, while doing the karma, you're doing the karma as a devotion or an act of devotion to the Lord. That is the main thing. We have covered this in a separate topic called Sankalpa, and you can look at that. Here, that kindness and selflessness naturally leads them to the success in finding the treasure. In this case, treasure is not the material wealth, the Lord himself. That is what we call the treasure. So that completes the three paths, the meditator path, the thinker path, the helper path. Now the question is, hey, these all look great, but I don't think I belong to any one of them. Now what happens if everything looks too tough for us? So that is the question we are going to try to answer. And for that, we will move to the next slide. Bhargav?
अन्ये त्वेवमजानन्तः श्रुत्वा नेभ्य उपासते तेऽपि चातितरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः. But others, not having this knowledge, hearing it from others, revere it. Even they also nevertheless cross over death, devoted to the Vedas they hear. Krishna acknowledges that there are many people who may not have complete spiritual knowledge or the ability to engage in direct meditative practices. These individuals, however, can still attain liberation by listening to the teachings from others, especially from spiritual teachers. This verse emphasizes that everyone has the potential for spiritual growth and liberation regardless of their current level.
Right? So everybody might have heard there is a Shravanam or listening. Listening is a very important step for all of us. Think of a village boy and a wise teacher. In this quiet village, imagine there is a boy called Ravi, who was very playful and was not interested in any of this. But one day he wandered into the temple where he saw the teacher or a master sharing the stories from Bhagavatam. Ravi just thought, okay, let me just listen a little bit. And even though he didn't understand much, he started liking it. And slowly the seeds were planted in his mind where he started enjoying the stories and sharing the stories with his friends. Slowly the transformation happens within Ravi, where he becomes more kinder, patient, and more curious about life. Eventually, he seeks guidance and probably goes into a higher spiritual path. So the message for all of us here is listening to good stories or the teachings is like planting seeds in the garden. With time and care, these seeds will grow into beautiful flowers, which have the great qualities of kindness, faith, and wisdom. So let's engage in those wonderful activities.
सबं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र समवस्थितमीश्वरं न हि नस्त्यात्मनात्मानं ततो यान्ति परां गतिम्. For seeing in all the same, Lord fully established, he harms not himself in others by himself. Then he goes to the highest goal. A person who sees the same divine essence in all beings realizes the true nature of the self. Such a person recognizes that Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, is established equally in all beings, transcending physical differences. By realizing this sameness, one does not harm the self, meaning one refrains from actions that would cause harm to the inner self or to others. Such a person would ultimately reach the highest goal.
Right, you're seeing in the picture actually that Lord is there everywhere. Would anybody harm knowing that not only the other person is just like you, a divine spiritual being, but even the Lord is there within all of those? No, one would not. Since the Paramatma is everywhere, the Antaratma, as we call, we don't want to do harm to anybody. But the world is full of things where we cut the trees, where we do what we need to do. So we covered that in a previous video about the Panchamaha Yagam. So think of this way, due to what we recognize as divine soul and the divine spark in every being, we do the Deva Yajna, or the worship to the Lord, in the form of a gratitude. I encourage all children to light a diya in this auspicious Kartika Masa, or during the day as it is applicable. Consult with your parents. Not only that, think of the Lord before having the meals and thanking the Lord for what you have got. Let's take the next one, that is the Pitru Yajna. Spend time with the family, listen to the elders, or learn the family traditions. That is very important from a Pitru Yajna perspective. Then for the Bhuta Yajna, you can try to see how you can, care for animals, plants, or nature. You can do feeding for the birds, plant a tree, or water tulasi plant. All these things you can do. Then the Manusha Yajna, you can actually think of helping others selflessly. You can share your old clothes maybe and things like that, or give away your books which you don't need anymore for the needy, and so on if needed. Then the Brahma Yajna is the study and sharing of the knowledge. Salute the great teachers and the ancient masters in our parampara, and the rishis who have given us the great scriptures of the Vedas. We can actually learn from Bhagavad Gita or these divine works and share it with others like you're doing today. So this kind of a gratitude and realization actually strengthens our connection and inspires us to give back, making life more meaningful and harmonious. Right? So let's go to the next one. Now you heard all these things. How are we going to succeed? We're not going to succeed on our own. How we are going to is the next subject.
अनन्याश्चिन्तयन्तो मां ये जनाः पर्युपासते तेषां नित्याभियुक्तानां योगक्षेमं वहाम्यहम्. Thinking on me with no other goal, what folks wait upon me. To them, when they are constant in perseverance, I bring about acquisition and preservation of their goal. Krishna speaks of the devotees who think of him with no other goal in mind. These devotees see Krishna as their everything, their sole purpose and support. For such devotees who worship him with single-minded devotion, Krishna himself takes care of their needs, both prosperity, yoga, and welfare kshema. Krishna promises to take full responsibilities for those who surrender to him.
Right, this is a very important one. I'm going to remind all of us of the story of Sudama. How many of you know the story of Sudama? Kuchela, Sudama. Nobody knows. We need to work on that definitely, which is fine. So, okay. So Vaidehi, you know?
Yes, I know.
Okay, tell me a little bit.
Krishna's friends Sudama, they were friends when they were kids, and when they grew up, Krishna becomes the king, and Sudama was poor. One day, Sudama's wife made Sudama go to Krishna's palace, and then his wife made poha, and then Sudama was at Krishna's palace, and he was like eating all the rich food and everything and then asking Krishna. He wanted to ask Krishna for more money, but he didn't because he was too nervous to. Before leaving, Krishna saw he had poha with him, and then Krishna ate it, and he really liked it. And then when Sudama went back home, he saw his house like it was like a palace.
Awesome. So actually what happened is Sudama was overwhelmed by Krishna's love. That is what happened. He could not bring himself to ask anything. So what Krishna did, when Sudama reached Krishna's palace, Krishna welcomed with great joy, even washing his feet and seating him on a grand throne. So Krishna treated Sudama as a very honored guest, despite his very simple appearance. Sudama was overwhelmed and he didn't even think that was needed. He was just happy. That is the attitude of a devotee. We are just happy seeing the Lord, witnessing the Lord, right? We are not going to ask, but what Krishna promises to such a person, like here, when he went back, Sudama returned home, he found his humble hut transformed into a beautiful mansion, and his family was happy and well provided for. So Krishna took care of Sudama's needs, that is the yoga, and his protection, the kshema, even before Sudama asked, showing how Sudama's wishes were fulfilled. Basically, Krishna fulfills the promise made in this verse without even asking for it. He knows whom to give what. All right, the last verse.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः. Abandoning all other duties, surrender to me as thy sole refuge. From all evils at thee shall rescue be not grieved. The instruction to relinquish all dharmas does not mean abandoning all righteous actions. Instead, it means relinquishing the ego or sense of doership associated with those actions. It involves giving up the sense of agency, possessiveness, and the attachment to the results while practicing karma, jnana, and the bhakti yogas.
Right. So how many of you know the story of Gajendra? Okay, lot of hands. Let's see. Adrit, tell half a story. Let's give chance to others also. And I want to actually, I didn't see everybody. Sriman, you want to tell the story of Gajendra?
Aryan.
Can you share us the story?
Yeah. So Gajendra was he was a king. Yeah, he was a king who was cursed to be an no.
Indradyumna. That is fine. You don't need to worry about the names.
Yeah.
Start the story from elephant.
Yeah, he was an elephant, and a crocodile came and attacked him basically, and got hold of one of his like legs, and then he says Adi Mulame, and he like, and then Perumal comes with like Garuda and like saves him basically. It's a summary.
Awesome. That's okay. That's okay. Great. Thanks for reminding everybody about that wonderful scene. But what is important here is Gajendra was with his family, with a herd of elephants. He also was a very powerful elephant. Despite his immense strength, could he save himself? Could his herd save? No. The crocodile was pulling. I mean, of course, it's a struggle went on for a long time. We are not going to. And slowly, the Gajendra strength started to fade, realizing his helplessness. Just like in the presentation we show Draupadi, just like that, realizing the helplessness. We are not going to be able to sort out all these things ourselves. So that is when the surrender happened, without having the attachment to the ego that I will do something to save myself. That is what Krishna is saying here. You need to give up that I'm going to save myself. That is very important to be able to get the grace of Lord. Till the time your ego is involved, it is very difficult to save yourself. So even then, we don't give up many times. So here, just like Gajendra's plea, our plea will be heard by Lord Vishnu, just like him descending with Garuda and freeing the elephant from the crocodile. Here our surrender to the Lord with faith will move the Lord and he will respond to us. That is the basic thing that we wanted to say. We are actually at time, so we'll go to the final one. Just this is our wonderful Dole Krishna that was shared by Mami. Thanks, Mami, for giving opportunity to the children to learn some verses and practice and learn the meanings and come. With this, just I wanted to say one small prayer. This is actually from Swami Desika's work, Bhavad Dhyana Sopanam, Antarjyoti Kimapi Minam Anjanam Yoga Drishte Chintaratnam Sulabamiha Siddhi Mokshanurupam Dhinanatas Vasanasamanam Daivatam Daivatanam Divyam Sakshushriti Parishadam Trishyate Rangamadhi, sorry. So in this, Lord is compared both to actually a kajal or collyrium or mai that we keep in, the girls especially put in their eyebrows and the eyelids rather. So that is basically one of the things like that yogi used to. There is a special collyrium that you can apply, which will give you and allow you to see the treasures, in this case, the truth, right? So, which is a difficult one. So in this verse, Lord himself is the Paravasudevan, but he has descended himself as our Lord Krishna here, or in your home as Shalagrama Murti, and he is allowing us to get his divine grace on a journey to the divine. That is all we have today. So thank you all. Any questions? Let me know. Stop sharing, Mama.